Welcome. Today I'm talking about this idea of an AI automation agency. I'm laughing because in preparation to shoot this, I'm watching a number of these, and a lot of the folks in the space, the gentlemen primarily who are generating this content, they look like they were cloned from the same factory. And they're wearing a black shirt, they've got a fade, and have an interesting background that's backlit with books behind it. And as I'm sitting here, I can't help but notice the irony. As a dude wearing a black shirt with a fade and lights and books behind him, about to talk about AI, automation, process documentation, and everything else. So I'm laughing because of that. And I am also laughing because every one of their videos, to some extent or another, also leans heavily on what Alex Hormozy's talking about. I think is a genius and is a once in a generation entrepreneur that's making a significant impact. As I'm watching a lot of these videos, I can't help but think, show me how you're actually doing it. Show me the mechanism behind the way you're doing this thing. I don't want to see that you're just building a chatbot. Anyways, what I want to try to do in this video is do for you what I've done for a number of clients over the years, which is actually move the needle for them. I wish I had the information that I'm going to provide to you years ago when I first started. So I enlisted in the Marines, and that was back in 2010. For me, it was very simple. I realized college would not be a good fit for me. The Marine Corps was the only option in my mind. There was one job in the Marine Corps that was the right fit, and that was the infantry. So I enlisted, and probably a year and change after, I found myself boots on the ground doing foot patrols in Marja, Southern Helmand Province, Afghanistan. A very interesting set of character building experiences. What I learned in both of my deployments to Afghanistan and experience in the Marine Corps infantry as a whole impacted my career. At the end of the enlistment, I found out there was such a thing called a personal trainer, but I actually had never heard of that before. I was 22 at the time, late to the game, I suppose, and found out that you could actually get paid to work out of a gym and help other people get in shape. So I decided to try my hand in the private sector. And fitness sounded fantastic. I got certified and I started working at a gym, worked there for a while, and over the years steadily progressed from service provider to a personal training director. One of the reasons behind that is because when I got out, I was running a squad of 12 Marines. The leadership experience from a young age in high stakes environments and leaves an impression, an imprint on your brain that isn't easily shaken. And for better or worse, in many cases, in my experience, for better. So working with gym owners and having that instinct and common sense to get things done on the ground. I've said for a long time that the infantry is the translation of strategy. It's where you operationalize a plan. There's a saying that is very ubiquitous in the world of strategy. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, attributable to the boxer Mike Tyson. There's a similar line that's just as great, and it's no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And all of this is pointing to a fact and a reality. A plan and an operation are two completely different things. In the realm of fitness, the difference between a workout plan and an actual workout couldn't be more stark. It's one thing to say you're going to do 6 sets of barbell back squats versus doing them. It's just this difference could not be more stark. But one without the other is often incomplete. Theory and practice, big difference. I'm going to break down what I do in practice to document a business model, strategy, brand experience, develop their processes, turn that into team training materials, SOPs, automations, and do all of that in a very visual way that aligns a team. Instead of continuing to just talk about it, I'm going to show you. All right, after the Marine Corps, I went all the way through this process in the fitness industry of being a trainer, a training director, to a role with an investor-backed gym in South Florida called Trainer Space. And we ran that project for a little over 4 years. Ultimately, it was sold to Redcon 1 and is still in operations to this day. That period of time allowed me to work with a number of other military veterans to speak at the flotation tank therapy conference. I got the Governor's Young Entrepreneur Award, a local Dancing with the Stars style thing. This background I had was diverse in defense, nonprofit, private sector, and all of them were starting from scratch. An advantage was going to a veteran entrepreneur training at FAU. And in this training, they taught a framework that you've undoubtedly seen or heard of. It's called the Business Model Canvas, or the BMC for short. BMC, it's a 9-block canvas that was created by Alexander Osterwilder. Fantastic tool. Going through this veteran entrepreneur training, and it followed up with an invitation to FAU's Tech Runway, which is a startup accelerator. And that's a year-long program with trainings and mentorship. And actually, this is my co-founder and colleague, Jack Hickler. I've worked with him now for almost 5 years. And this all culminated with a project in the fitness industry. We're building a gamified remote training technology that we had this cool smart mirror for our proof of concept that would quantify your reps, so track reps and qualify the form of the reps, allowing us to scale one-on-one virtual training. Really stoked about that. Towards the end of 2019, we had some friends and family backing, technology partners, and we're in discussions with a few angel investors to support a seed round. Things were going very well. We're developing some awesome stuff. And then March of 2020 hit, COVID lockdown started, angel investors disappeared. In and around that time, the technology partners relationship dissolved, the opportunity evaporated before our eyes. And what became a really cool opportunity turned into this situation where Jack and I were looking at tons of plans, business models and pro formas and cap tables and all of this stuff. And it was just us feeling overwhelmed. There was a lot of complexity. We didn't know how to do a lot of the stuff that we needed to do. And although I had some training on customer development, the methodology founded by Steve Blank, who a lot of people consider to be the father of modern entrepreneurship, and knew that process, I felt like they were all fragmented. So here I am back in the initial lockdowns in 2020, thinking we have to completely start over from scratch. And this time I want to do it in a way that there's peace of mind. As colleagues, we both understand what we're trying to do. There's no mystery, and every detail is mapped out. And I fell back on a visual tool that we use in the Marine Corps. It is not very sophisticated, as you can tell by this first picture. These guys are standing around in the mud of a hand-dug terrain model. These guys have a cardboard and duct tape model of a mock village. They have strings on the ground, some chunks of grass, looks like a Copenhagen dip tin cap, some pebbles and cardboard. My point in sharing this is it is not always sophisticated. Here's one that's a little more developed. And then, of course, this is some higher tech stuff. Maybe I need to find some things that are in between. But the point is, it can be low fidelity. A lot of times people look at business modeling and analysis and strategic planning stuff and think, oh, that takes so long. I've heard that response from a lot of solopreneurs and business owners who have small businesses and teams. Say, oh, I just don't have time for that. And it's the same type of thing with somebody who goes into the gym without a plan. And in a way, a lot of these people never sit down for the take to map out an actual strategy for their workout. Yet these are the same dudes who say they've been training for months and years and have plateaued and have difficulty breaking through. But they don't justify sitting down for an hour. They'll go to train for 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week, but they won't sit down with a notebook and plan it out. Similarly, in the business space, the perception is that strategic planning oftentimes is very cumbersome, laborious, and fails to deliver results because whatever you produce actually doesn't translate into the real world. That's the difference between deliberate strategy and emergent strategy. And most solopreneurs and small business owners are among the emergent strategy guys who just want to rip a template from someone else and apply that in the real world. And that's a lot of the dynamic I've witnessed. So I'm honing in on the fact that this tool is oftentimes low fidelity. Now, why this tool? The terrain model is utilized for a few reasons. One, in the types of operations that we're dealing with in the infantry in a combat environment, it can be classified under this acronym. You know how the military can be with acronyms. They love them. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This defines the type of operational environment when you're preparing to raid a village, as an example. Lives are on the line. It's a rapidly changing environment. It's volatile. And there's a lot of complexity. So what we're big on is actually winning. You don't want to lose your life or the lives of your buddies. Actually living is a big part of the game here, and winning is right behind that in terms of objectives. We want to survive and we want to kick ass. We wouldn't choose things, at least most of the time, that are arbitrary, trivial, low impact, or waste of times. More often than not, across a larger span of time, what you'll see is the only things that really make it are the things that work more often than not, such as a terrain model, which is a visual depiction of the reality in an area of operations that we overlay a strategy on top of, and we translate through a narrative or a mission briefing. So that's 3 pieces I want to break down, and stick with me here if you're tracking on this. If I've lost you so far, I promise I'll give you some cool templates and stuff that you can use. If you want to just skip to the end, you can see the translation of a business terrain model and the templates we use, and I'll give those to you for free. I'm building a case for why this is important. This isn't just dudes scraping mud around, putting some strings down. It's a very intentional tool that's been utilized for generations because it works, and it's carried through time because it's foundationally important to success. One of the reasons behind that is that people are visual. We share our mental images through story. So our projections of the future, our memories of the past, our perception on the current state translated through narrative. So this type of framework is as old as humanity itself, and it's crucial to recognize that. The equivalent in the private sector is non-obvious. So finding a business terrain model doesn't really seem to be out there. There's a number of things that kind of scratch that itch, right? There's business architecture, service design, there's analytics tools like funnelytics. There's things that give an overview of parts of the puzzle, but nothing that is truly holistic, a whole all-encompassing overview. Now, for example, imagine the crazy topsy-turvy world of a sergeant or a lieutenant coming in and only having half, right? We're going to be raiding the entire village. We only make half of this. And we just say, yeah, there's buildings over here. There's roads over here. There's probably some bad guys here, but don't worry about that for now. There's another terrain model out there that's completely different scales, orientation. You're going to have to find it on your own. But we're just going to focus on this one. And by the way, this is extremely high stakes, very complex, rapidly changing environment, tons of ambiguity and uncertainty, but we're not going to frame up the entire map. This is a lot of the time how planning in the business world is done. And a thought leader or speaker, someone who's notable in any field, hone in on one piece of the puzzle. And very infrequently do any of these pieces actually coalesce together. They don't dovetail. You have to kind of slapstick them together on your own. But what's worse than that, there's no apparent way outwardly to do that. Every technology tool is connected through like Zapier and such, but the actual binding between key points in your business only exists in your head. So the background processing for many business owners to keep this constellation of data points running is very heavy, and very infrequently do they have everything outwardly mapped out. And that's been my experience. There hasn't been an equivalent tool between the private sector and the defense world for what is arguably very similar challenges, because a business is a high stakes operation. Your life may not be on the line, but your livelihood certainly is. So in business and in military, there's a lot of similarities from the level of first principles, despite there being tons of solutions for different parts of a business. There doesn't seem to be an equivalent to what we use in the military. And that to me is a problem, because the reason we do this is to build a unified mental image of the operation. That alignment in the team is so critical. That's how we operate cohesively. When you cross the threshold from strategic planning into operations, and everything changes. The mental origin point of the plan is the same in everyone's mind. So we're pivoting from a similar place mentally. Now imagine everyone having a slightly different or greatly different understanding of the plan, and then everything changing. That's where chaos emerges. In a business context, most people only have a small insight on what needs to get done. their process, how things come into their process and what happens after the fact. Their knowledge and oversight is very limited. And in the small business world, that is so dangerous because it results in fatigue and burnout and frustration, lack of ownership, employee churn, all sorts of things that are not good. This description is trying to give you insight into my thinking at this time in my life. So I said, we need to build out a terrain model for ourselves. We need to map out the business that we're trying to build here. We didn't really know how to map out a business, but we just knew that it was something that needed to be done and it made a lot of sense. So we brought in all of our strategic deliverables and we've framed them up the best we could in those days. So this is what our original board looked like. We ended up getting pretty excited about it because it was nice to see everything in an unconstrained space. I showed it to one of our mentors at the startup incubator, and he basically looked at me with pity in his eyes and suggested in polite way that I don't quit my day job. So feeling a bit embarrassed, I told my colleague Jack, we got to make everything that we build a pitch deck from now on. We made a new board. We started refining the look of stuff. So we were learning things like brand script and funnel building. And we knew that there was a number of capabilities and skills that we needed to have that we didn't have. And figuring those out from industry leaders was important. So mapping those processes out were something that we cut our teeth on in business. That's how we started doing things, was process documentation. We knew we needed to map everything out sequentially. Over time, that evolved, and we ended up making a few different models. We landed on a pretty decent board. We ended up calling it the War Room, and we thought that was cool. We pivoted to basically virtual training because we thought, hey, I've been a fitness trainer for many years. That's a good way for us to just generate revenue and validate a piece of our hypothesis. And for the larger vision of the company that has AI tracking for reps and stuff. So we said, we'll just do a fraction of that and see if it grows. We ended up reaching out to one of my old fitness clients who happened to be a business owner. So I'm sitting there in the middle of COVID lockdowns pitching her on our fitness business that was in Miro mapped out in the War Room. And about halfway through, she says, what am I looking at? And I said, oh, it's a fitness program I'm really excited about. It's an online training thing. And she's like, yeah, fitness, whatever, but what is this on? And I said, it's a map that we're using to keep everything organized, give us peace of mind, and be able to just show what we're trying to do from A to Z, top to bottom. It's a holistic overview of the business. And she said, can you do one of these for my business? So that was a game-changing moment in my life and business because we realized, well, wait a minute, maybe we can do this mapping thing for other businesses. And I said, let me put a plan together. So Jack and I put our heads down and I said, okay, we started a map that was brutal and rough and definitely wasn't going to work. There was a catalyst that had us reinvent the second version. And that was that mentor tech runway. So I said, if we did that once, maybe we can do it a second time. Let's reinvent the War Room and we'll do a consulting project. And we made this thing called the Incubation Framework. So this was a 4-month engagement, one mental obstacle course per week. So this is a big workshop where we collaborate and run down one of these lanes with them to reach an outcome, a deliverable. This was back in 2000 and towards the latter half of summer. And we did one of these mental obstacle courses a week for 4 months. The initial 4 weeks was all project planning stuff, deliverables, timelines, all of this. And it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. It was valuable for the client. And they had this archive virtual environment of stuff. The challenge that we had was, what next? Do we just try to keep selling this thing over and over or not? We had this idea the whole time of building out a map, and this is one. And we used to say that the incubation framework, the thing I was just showing, the thing we sold first, was just like an acorn compared to an oak tree. We knew that there was a ton of other stuff, but we didn't know how to map that, how to show it in a way that was integrated and made sense. So we worked at it tirelessly. We worked at it for literally years. And like no joke about that. We've been doing this for years on a quest to figure out how to develop a holistic blueprint that's all-encompassing visualization of a business, a categorization of business data that creates a repository, connects it to the environment, and fields all of that data through generative AI. So this has been a big dream of ours, and we know that the foundational understanding is critical. So we've been slapsticking and ironing and stitching on concepts for a long time. And this is our original boards that said there's something else out there. We know that we can map out more than what we've done than just these processes. So we worked at it, and we ended up getting to a place that looks something like this. And when I sit down and do free strategy sessions with other business owners, it's helping them start off a venture map for themselves. A part of that is formulating the strategic plan, mapping out their time horizon, objectives to the next quarter, anchor all of that in their vision and their values and the culture, the purpose behind their business. And then we talk about the A to Z brand experience. What's happening in traffic channels? How are you driving traffic through to a funnel, nurturing that, converting it, onboarding, the whole thing, and detailing that out. It happens oftentimes in a low fidelity state. Like I showed earlier in the mud, we start off with Post-it notes. We start off with drafts. And over time, it gets a little more refined. It gets a little more polished. And the more we work at it, the smoother the picture becomes and the cleaner it becomes. And to a point where we start heat mapping areas that need further focus, areas that need to be reinvented, things that don't have something represented. For example, we've got a proposal here that exists in the proposal tool, but isn't represented. So that is a perfect indication as to why something like this is important, because that happens hundreds of times across dozens of different tools. So this is a place where we build a whole picture of the organization. So we've got Miro and Notion. We've found that Notion is invaluable to complement the mapping. This template is something that has been super helpful for organizing collateral. And we're giving this away for free. So the actual map along with the Notion dashboard. And then we're actually looking at giving away our first program. We thought about doing a course, but over time we realized courses really suck. And one of the reasons that they suck is that they're like one direction. Oftentimes the courses suck because it's just telling you what you have to do, and then you have to sit down and figure out how to do it. Even if you got templates and SOPs, it's difficult to sit down and actually do it. One of the reasons that people hire agencies, freelancers, consultants is to help with the doing of the things. So learning about it is only really half the battle, if that. We've been working to productize the services that we render. That's been a goal of ours for a long time, is to be able to give an entrepreneur a whole visualization of their strategy, of their key initiatives, of their experience blueprint, all their processes, their capability maps, give all of that to them quickly with minimal effort on their part and at very high quality, as it is the foundation for follow-on steps. It's not an ends, it's a means for business development and enhancing competitive advantage. So what we're thinking about doing is giving away Operation Pathfinder. We want to give it away for free to a handful of people first. So it looks like asynchronous workshops. So we've learned that over the years to be quite effective for pre-framing. Every step in the week-to-week project brings with it an asynchronous workshop. And there's training materials inside of it, so you can watch it at your own pace. You can learn. You can go down the learning piece as much as you want. In this case, we're talking about VUCA, what I've been discussing on this video. We introduce tools. We talk about how to solve the problems that are present. But more than that, we have intake sequences, capture the 20% of information that renders the 80% of the results. So in this example, we're capturing some foundational information. All of that connects through Zapier and ChatGPT integrations and templated deliverables in the back end that allow us to be way more efficient on how we provide insights and modeling to business owners and build out their venture map in record time with quality that they haven't ever seen before. So anyways, I'm looking at giving away this project, doing this project basically with a number of business owners. I think I want to do 4 or 5 business owners over the next quarter and go through each step of this with them. And this is basically what the project plan looks like. I think it would be awesome to further validate the productized version of this, to see how it performs in the wild, to modify it before we fully productize it. But this isn't a course. It's a project where there are workshops that are done asynchronously. So you're taking in information and providing information back that's collaborative. There's a meaningful outcome at the end. So we're giving these away for free. If you want these, you can comment below, reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and we'll send them to you directly. Thanks for watching. I hope that this brought insight. We're going to tee up our learnings and give them away for free because our mission is to build the smart business, not just putting a chatbot on your website, but actually generate a business that's self-aware, pulling in information from the environment, giving you the insights and solutions you need to maintain a competitive advantage. That's what we're passionate about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.